So I guess we just roll over and hand our freedom to the government. Hey guys, Ben here. So I don't know if you guys have seen this Beto gentleman. I'm sure most of you have. I've seen him several times on YouTube. And if you've been watching the Democratic debates, you'll notice that he said some outrageous things, some very un-American things, some very tyrannical things. I was watching his latest thing where he's at a town hall and gentleman asked him about the Second Amendment. And his response is, well, that's your interpretation. Boy, sounds like a postmodernist. And he pretty much goes on to say, well, I read this book, The Trail of Tears, and, that really shows that you don't have the right to stand up to your government. I definitely go over and watch Colion Noir's response to this because he makes a great point. And his point is this. The people that were making them do the march were being a tyrannical government. And they were able to do it because the Indians didn't have the ability to fight back because they weren't armed enough or trained enough. And so here we are being told by the tyrannical 18th century Britain monarch himself, Mr. Beto, that we don't have the right. And we're so well armed that it would really just be a waste of time. I mean, even if you had these guns, it wouldn't help. Well, then how about you make it legal where we can get some guns that will help? Like, make saws legal, make automatic weapons legal for everybody. Because then we'll have the ability to fight back. I mean, that's what your point is, right? I mean, your point is that, the ARs, they're just not enough. They're not enough to fight back. We got all these aircraft carriers and, battleships and, we got airplanes and stuff. ARs are really just worthless. They won't even help. So give them up. Yeah, great point, Mr. Beto. You're making the point for us that we need weapons that we can use to defend against a tyrannical government. This is just ridiculous. I mean, I know the reason he's saying this is because he's trying to win the presidency. He wants votes. I mean, he's not being consistent. I mean, just a year ago, he was saying, no, you can keep your AR-15s. And we've all seen the clip of the radio show where he said, no, we're not here to take them. We're not going to take your guns. Then here he is, barely a year later, saying we're going to take your guns. And he's doing it for votes because he knew he wasn't going to win. He wasn't going to be Biden. He wasn't going to be Sanders. He wasn't strong enough. So he said, well, I got to do something. I need to find a new tactic. I got to get the fringe left, and I got to go after this issue. So I'm going to pretend that these weapons of war, which it's just ironic that he keeps calling them weapons of war. All these weapons of war that the military use. But then he turns around and says, well, they're not even that effective. You couldn't use it against the military. Pick one side or the other, okay? Either they're weapons of war or they're not. You don't get to speak out of both sides of your mouth, which I know is what you're doing, but you don't get to do that. Ugh. So anyway, so he tells this gentleman that pretty much, well, your interpretation of the Second Amendment is different than mine. No, it's not. It's not a different interpretation. That's what it says. It's written in ink. And then people signed it because they're the ones who lived through it. I don't know if you guys have ever read anything about the American Revolution, but it was guerrilla warfare against a superior, more well-armed, more trained military. And we engaged in guerrilla warfare. We had the militia. You had George Washington, but he was losing most of his battles running around, kind of just presenting a front, a military front, just like a unified body. But it was the militia, the guerrilla tactics, the hit and runs, the things that just slowly whittled them down till they realized it was a waste of time to fight us. They didn't have the time, the resources. It was not worth it for them at a certain point. And that's the point. I mean, and the problem is that as Christians, I see a lot of people that are waving one way or the other. And I understand it. I really do. As Christians, our main objective is to preach the gospel. It is to preach Christ crucified, penal substitutionary atonement, forgiveness of sins. And I understand that, Christianity, Jesus, that is what we want to preach. It's not guns first, it's Jesus first. But I don't see anywhere in Scripture where it says that if you see evil coming, to roll over and just let it flow through. I don't think that's biblical. And when I see tyranny coming, obvious tyranny coming, just this crazy evil that I know is on its way, what are we supposed to do? Just roll over, let it come? It's cool. Because if they get rid of all the guns, then they're going to go after the next guns. It's going to be rifles first, ARs. right? And that's going to work. And it's going to be hunting rifles, because you don't need something with a scope that can shoot 1,000 miles. Those are dangerous. And that's going to be shotguns. Oh my gosh, buck spread and slugs. Oh, the mass murder. And they're going to get to the pistols, which accounts for like 90% of the deaths and gun violence anyways. It's pistols. So they're going to whittle it all the way down to there's nothing left. And then us Christians, as we're fighting that battle, we're going to lose our freedoms over here. And then, we got the stuff where you can't say anything about, gay marriage or anything over here. You just got to keep your mouth shut, and then you got the Hillary Clintons over here, and all these people. You can practice your religion, but just behind closed doors. It can't be in public policy. You can't have freedom. That stuff is going to go away quickly. It's already going away. And you got these other people, you get these atheists and postmodern and all these other, syncretists, universalists, and, they're like, oh, well, it's fine. Christianity's just going away. You guys are next, all right? It's not just Christianity. You guys are next. Once they get through with us and our Christian rights and get rid of them, they're going to move on to you. It doesn't just stop here. I got all these people, they jump on the bandwagon, we need universalism and everybody needs to express themselves. There should be no restraints. But then when you get rid of the people you've set up as your opposition, right, the Christian community and all their evil bigotry, fundamentalists, and all these caricatures, once they're gone, the government's coming to you. And you'll be worshiping Caesar, just like first century Rome. And this is how it all starts. I don't think it's biblical or Christian to give up guns. Guns are for protecting ourselves. They are for you, Mr. Beto. It wasn't created so we could go hunting. It wasn't created so we could just fend off an intruder here and there. It was because our founding fathers knew that you were coming. They knew that one day, somehow, somewhere in the future, Americans would forget the past. They'd forget their own history. And a tyrannical person like you, who's probably being paid by the UN or some other multinational company to get rid of our stuff, so then the UN can eventually come on and take over. Oh, that's not going to happen. Yeah, it is going to happen. There's people that don't like us, and there's people that don't like our sovereignty and our nationalism, and they want to get rid of us and just form this one huge conglomerate. You don't have to worry about these nation states and all this nationalistic pride and patriotism, because it's just one big thing, and whatever you say goes around the world. This is how it starts. And I'm so sick of all these fake phrases, these weapons of war. Every single weapon that has been made can be a weapon of war. You keep saying weapon of war as if this is some kind of category that's always existed, that you didn't just make up out of thin air. Guess what? I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years on active duty, and while I was there, I used a Beretta. Yup, a pistol, a 9mm. I trained with it, and I carried it. So if you're going to say we can't have military weapons, we can't have pistols, because those are military weapons. And so are shotguns. I trained with shotguns too. Imagine that. What, are you going to get rid of those too? Look, I understand the holdup as Christians, okay? I get it. And this has happened before. I mean, during the American Revolution, Christians had the same problems. They did. They were faced with the same thing. Well, do we fight back? Is it biblical? Is it a Christian response to return violence with violence? And they had all these discussions. They did. And some people were, took the pacifist position. Some people went loyalist. They felt that they couldn't betray their country, Britain. And then those people who decided to fight back are the people who founded this country. If it wasn't for them and their example, there wouldn't be an America. We'd still be under a monarchy. There'd be no Western world. There'd be no democracy. There'd be no capitalism. All of that came about because a couple of men stood up and said no to evil. That's what's happening, and it's coming. We need to take a stand, Christians. And I know that it's hard. I know that we don't want to be violent, because we don't. That is the very last thing. We don't want to just jump to violence, but it's coming to us. We can't just stand back and just let this happen. It's not biblical. It's not Christian. And I abhor violence. I don't want this to happen, but it is happening. And you need to pick a side. Are you going to roll over and let tyranny come and just be a casual observer and just let it happen? Or are you going to resist evil? You need to pick a side now. The time is now. You can't just wait for some politician to come save you. Trump's not going to save you. Even if Trump gets reelected, it's only 4 more years, but he's still Congress and the Senate. The Democrats, he's only one man, and he can only do so much. He can't protect us forever. All right, despite what you think about him, whether you might like him or hate him, he's not going to be around forever. And once he's gone, who knows what's coming? I can guarantee you that the gun confiscation, calling it a buyback, by the way, I didn't buy my guns from you, Beto, and I didn't buy them from the government. I bought them from a gun store in Georgia. I don't remember seeing any politicians in there. It was a veteran, and he's a cool guy. So stop calling it a buyback. You're not buying back anything. You are stealing guns from us. Mandatory buyback. I just can't. It's freaking... Okay, so the time is now, all right? Mr. Beto, you can't have our guns. It's not just about guns. It's about our future. You know, I have a 15-month-old son, and his future is not for sale. Okay, let me say that again so you can hear it. You can't have my son's future. You can't have my future. You can't have my wife's future, or my family's future, or my grandchildren's future. I know what you're trying to do. We all do. We all see it coming. And I know you've got a bunch of ignorant people out there convinced that you're doing this to save lives. No, you're not. The stats don't lie. Truth doesn't care what you think. Facts are just what they are. Okay? If you're doing this for people, you should be going after handguns, because 90% of the murders that happen with guns, it's handguns. So if you're really doing this to stop all these crazy mass killings, then go after pistols. But you're not doing that because you know it's ridiculous. Because you know if you went after that, at least at this point of stage, people would say, it's all about tyranny. So you're pretending and hiding behind this veneer of doing it to protect people. No, you're not. You people want to know what violence looks like, what murder looks like on a daily basis, what mass shootings look like? You haven't seen anything yet. Wait until all the guns are taken away from people who bought them legally. And then wait until all the people who didn't get them legally, who illegally own them, are the only ones who have them. The government is not going to protect you. The police are not going to protect you because they can. If all the guns are gone, the police can't be everywhere at once. It is not that they're not trying. It's not that they wouldn't try. They just can't, logistically speaking. There's not enough cops to cover every person in America. They just can't do it. And Mr. Beto, I know that you referenced the military. I don't know if you knew this, but the military is not on your side. Okay? I was in the military. I'm a veteran. I know how they think because I know how I thought when I was in the military. And if you think for 1 second that you're going to get the military just to roll in here and start stealing guns, when half of them are the ones who own the guns you're saying that people need to buy back, you're out of your mind. Now, I know you'll probably do some fishy, illegal stuff. You're like, wow, we can't get the military to do it, so we're going to get UN troops to come in here and do it. I know that's what's coming, and I know that's what you're thinking. Because veterans active duty, they're not going to be on your side. They're not going to fight for you. No, they're not. I wouldn't have done it. I'm not going to do it now, and I wouldn't have done it on active duty. So I'm pretty sure they won't. So I know that you're going to have to come in here if you win the presidency, or whoever it is, even if it's not Mr. Beto, whoever it is eventually down the road. When they come in to do this, it's going to get violent. And Americans and military men and women, they're not going to be on your side, whoever it is that's doing this. They will resist you, and they will fight back. And then you'll have to go to the UN. You have to bring people from other countries into our country. You'll be attacking your own people. But I know you don't care about that, because it's not about the people. It's about what you want. It's about evil and wicked desires. That's it, folks. That's it. Time to pick a side. Do you want tyranny or do you want freedom? It's going to cost something. It might cost some of us our freedom. It might cost some of us our lives. But this is the time to choose. Pick a side now, because when it comes, I don't want you to be taken by surprise. You need to be aware of what's coming. And it is. That's all I got.